Hey guys, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardinellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And we are joined in studio with, hey, you introduce him, Cody.
Okay.
Our friend. Haven't seen him in a long time.
Yes. In studio via Zoom, we have Tom from Nerds for Humanity.
Hey.
Hello, nerd.
Hey, welcome. I have to go. I'll add the claps.
I was going to say, yeah, we got to add
It'll
the
be
claps
much more grandiose in a minute here. But how you doing, man? I think we looked. I'll do the official thing, but I think the last time we were on a video together was 2019, late fall. It was either November or around there. So how you been, man?
Well, that was a very different time in human history, wasn't it? I've been good. Since then, I moved back to the good old US of A this summer. So when we last talked, I was in Zurich, Switzerland, and now I'm in the great state of California.
Hey, we're in California because that's like basically the East Coast.
Northern California. I'm in the Bay Area, about 15 minutes from Palo Alto.
Oh, very cool, man. So have you guys been okay with all the fires and stuff up there the last few months?
It was a bit weird. Like when we moved back, we had these crazy lightning storms, dry lightning storms they were called. And so then we had the fires, and then the sky turned red.
Says something about
so that was kind of nutty,
dog.
that was nutty. And then there was like all this smoke, like my car had like a layer of ash over it. But we survived, and I think it's
welcome
2020.
back to California, dog.
I know. I haven't had to file my income taxes. I'm sure that's going to be really fun in California as well.
That's the best part when you get the Blade. Well, that's what it costs extra for the Blade Runner skies, to live in future Blade Runner. They're like, well, it's not cheap, man. We don't do this for free.
I will tell you, it's late October, and I am loving this weather. I mean, it's sunny. It's kind of like, maybe just in the mid 70s. It's amazing. It's definitely beats Zurich and Seattle, where I used to live for 13 years. Seattle is a little different in the fall. Not quite as sunny.
Oh, I'm sure a little. And also, what I have to admit, I've never been anywhere near Zurich. How is there in the fall? What is the Zurich fall like?
It's a little better than Seattle, but it's not quite as sunny and optimistic as California, I feel like. So, okay. And then the other thing is the burrito game here is way bigger than, for sure, Zurich, but also Seattle. We had some kind of Mexican food, but not like what I'm able to access.
Yeah, when I lived
here.
in New York, there was literally only like one Mexican restaurant. The Mediterranean and Middle Eastern food is the Mexican food of New York.
What about in New York? Because I thought there's people from like Cuba, maybe just more like East Coast, like Latin America.
No, you get a lot. You get a lot of Dominicans. You get a lot, not Dominicans, Puerto Ricans. But it's a different cuisine. Yeah. It's not. No,
I get it. I know. It's not. It's not Tex-Mex. I understand that, but I'm just saying there's something.
Americanized flour tortilla made in Texas in 1927 that we love in the southwestern United States.
Regional food, we can get into regional food differences more and more later. But one thing I want to talk about, because we were talking before this, how obviously last time we did this, much different political landscape as far as Andrew Yang was still running for president. The primary was still in the heat of it. We didn't have, what was that day when everyone dropped out and endorsed Joe Biden? Was that a Monday, right?
Before Super Tuesday.
Yeah, when everyone famously, I remember, Amy Klobuchar appeared next to Joe Biden on a stage to say, I am dropping out to endorse Joe Biden. And then hopefully she gets something in the cabinet, which we'll talk about more in a second as well. But since then, a lot has happened. And now we could say, I guess we're 10 days from Election Day, but I think millions of people have voted across the country.
Yeah.
So, first of all, have you voted yet? You don't tell people who you voted for. I think I could guess. But have you voted yet? And just the last few months since Joe Biden's won to now, just kind of with Andrew Yang moving out of the limelight, how have you kind of seen, what's your opinion on the political scene?
I voted about 2 weeks ago by mail, and it was awesome.
When did
there
you
were
vote
a lot
again?
of propositions. A lot of propositions to read through. I had to spend more time thinking about those than the presidential election. And dropped it off at one of many. There were like probably 5 or 10 different ballot drop box locations within like a 15-minute drive of my house. So it was very convenient. Dropped it off like after walking the dog, like late at night. It was fine. And then I got an email a week later confirming that they received my ballot. And then I got another email a week after that saying that it's been accepted and it will be counted. So I thought my voting experience was quite good.
Wow. So you actually got an email, huh?
Yeah. When I registered, you can opt in to get this like ballot tracks updates. It's almost like your Amazon package delivery updates.
Yeah, maybe I got to do that then, because I've always opted out of that because I get way too many emails. But I guess you're right. Did it tell? Oh, wow, that's kind of cool.
I think you can, even in California, I believe you could do like text message updating where they'll text you like, it's here.
Yeah.
It's here.
Does it tell you when it was quoted Does it tell you when it was counted a second time and a third time too? Do they kind of?
I haven't seen that happen yet, but I think you have to upgrade.
Yeah.
You have to go for Ballot Track Prime for that.
Yeah, that's the premium service.
Yeah. Was your dead grandmother? Did she vote too? Did it alert you of that as well?
The dog's ballot came in fine.
Yeah, the dog's ballot came in fine. Okay.
The previous owner of the house, I filled that in for her too. So we're good.
You'd be surprised how it works so well. But no, I'm very glad to hear that. And again, in jest. No, honestly, I think the weird thing and we can talk more about this. Personally, when I see a lot of the discussion back and forth, the only thing I for real see is that like things can legitimately get lost in mail. We're doing pretty good here in California, but like I'm not worried about, yes, people's dogs voting, but it's like, yeah, I don't know. The mail's iffy. So far, though, it seems like it's been going okay. I mean, we'll find out. They can't count votes yet. All they can do is put propaganda out and say X amount of registered ballots have been returned. That means we're winning. But we'll see on election day. But I guess more recently, so we haven't talked about any of this stuff. Obviously, how did you think about? We can say all three debates. One was the weirdest debate I've ever seen, where it was like a Monday Night War debate where they just competed on the airwaves. But without getting into specifics yet, just overall, were you pleased with what we have as American presidential debates this cycle?
I think the debates in a way served their purpose to help us understand the choices that we have. And we learned that, for me, it was confirmational that Donald Trump is not a thoughtful, kind of contemplative, cerebral leader. He's very much a kind of bomb thrower. And I learned that Biden is fine. He's fine. And so that's all I needed to know.
Okay. And then what about, because I have to admit, when I saw the second, again, it wasn't a debate, but they had competing head-to-head town halls. Was one of the weirder things. Would you like to see more of, because I have to admit, as I sat back and thought more about it, I'm like, this is kind of dumb. But then I started thinking about it, and I was like, if they have multiple debates, and then we have one time where they just, I don't know if they have to compete, but just in between those debates, sandwich a town hall where they get to just unfettered get their thoughts out. And then you have that third debate where you can kind of press them on what they said at it. Like if it had been planned ahead of time and it's debate 1 sets it up, you have your town hall by yourself. Debate 3, you kind of challenge each other on your challenge each other on the town halls. Just some game plan or structure, not what we had this year where it was like, I don't know, they'll talk about something, I guess. Here's the questions, and they won't bring them up. I don't know.
They do.
I think that could be the future thing.
It's as much as I love debates, and I think that's important. It is a very old business model way of doing things. Debates, it used to be, were the event that candidates came to because literally there was no other method of learning about these people. And there would be very publicly attended debates, and there was like almost an art form to it. And it's much like the caucuses. It's something I don't never want to get away from because I think it's still part of the fine art of politics, right? But at the same token, I do think when it comes to serving the public about understanding what a candidate really stands for, well, advertisements on TV aren't going to do it because, look, it's just a bunch of negative ads from both sides. You know what I'm saying? Positive ads from their own website aren't going to do it because that's just a bunch of fluff propaganda. You can't really rely upon what the media tells you about the candidate because CNN will cover up any corruption story of Biden until like the end of time and make fluff pieces for him ad nauseum. Okay. I really think a future model is going to be like long form discourses with, I don't think our society will tolerate not receiving answers from people, but being forced to choose who's going to be our commander in chief without knowing a lot more about them, so much so that there will be a demand for almost like a new media birth of information about them. Like, I don't think it's a joke that this election cycle, they said Joe Rogan should be interviewing these guys.
Oh, yeah. What do you think about that, Tom? The Joe Rogan debate. Were you on board with that one?
Kind of. Like, I think to the extent that the argument is for more long-form conversations, yes. If Joe Rogan should be the moderator, I don't know about that. I mean, I think like...
or not necessarily the moderator, because it wouldn't be a debate, but like...
Yeah, the
scheduled,
facilitator.
Yeah, scheduled widespread conversations.
He
Because
is
like
on record. His thing, Joe Biden said he would have voted for Bernie Sanders. So you could say he's biased in that regard.
Joe Biden said,
I will agree with this. The whole like you get 2 minutes, I get 2 minutes, you get 2 minutes. That kind of back and forth has like kind of diminishing returns. In fact, I think if you gave Trump 5 minutes, I don't know if he would be able to fill it.
Well, he'd
Like
fill
because
it, but substance
well, yeah,
would be the question.
he would be talking. His
Yeah,
mouth would be
exactly.
moving. But he would be basically repeating, like, if you literally
so are
gave
you
him
saying
5
that brevity
minutes,
is the essence of wit and he's more witty? Yes, I definitely agree.
Maybe.
Kind of the opposite.
Maybe.
Donald Trump will be like, we did the thing. And he'll say, the thing was great. We did the thing. It's an awesome thing. Oh, my God, this thing. The thing.
And then
Beautiful thing.
he'll say, what
It's
about
beautiful.
those 15 billion that you got from China, bro? And
Yeah,
then,
there you go.
And then it's brief. You're
And-
right. We did this awesome thing. It was great. And he'll spread his fingers this way, you know, because he's always going like this and then pointing and then going like this and then pointing. And then he'll ask about the corruption of the Biden family. You're right. It would be very rapid, you know?
I would love to give him 5 minutes to say, oh, Mr. President, you've talked about how your healthcare plan will be better and cheaper than Obamacare. Can you please spend the next 5 minutes explaining how your plan would work?
Well, and I got to tell you, I actually very much agree. I would to see
Biden care.
No, I know. I would like to see like almost a requirement of if you've got this idea to massively change like 80% of our economy, where's the freaking PowerPoint presentation? Like we all cheered as a joke when Andrew Yang said I'll be the first president to do the State of the Union address with a PowerPoint presentation.
I wasn't joking.
But like at this point, I really think no. Like that shouldn't be a joke. Like if you're going to be our mother freaking commander in chief, and also if the executive branch of government now is basically this mini kingship because our society has allowed executive orders just to become the new, you know, governance via fiat, then I want a mother freaking PowerPoint presentation. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to know what you're going to do and how you're going to lead. Like, there's no escaping from this. Are you going to pack the Supreme Court? And there's no escaping of, like, are you going to get us out of war or not? Show me how you're motherfucking going to do it.
But wait, one thing, because I want to move on. I have a question I'll move on to. But the one thing I'll bring up here is the problem I think what debates are best for, quite frankly, the candidate can say whatever the hell they want.
But
what the
the
administration
public's so
does
tired
is,
of
what I'm
that.
saying is what the administration does and what the candidates say rarely are married. There's generally like some lines there. You can see how obviously it's the administration from the candidate. But a lot of times you'll look at the actual results and be like, oh, that didn't happen. They said they would do it. They said
it
they'd
provides
push for
a
it.
built-in accountability because we know what the plan is.
Donald Trump said he repealed Obamacare on day one. And then he said, I repealed the individual mandate. Anyway, 4 years later, my only point is not saying you should or shouldn't have. My only point is candidates will run in saying, I'm going to do this day one. Then they'll get elected and day 1,400 comes up and they'll be like, the thing, you didn't do it. Well, what do you know? It's time to elect me again. Anyway, though, we can talk about this for a while.
By the way, day 1,400, Cody would technically be in his 5th or 6th year of president. So did you just, as Cody the Oracle,
future?
predict
No, we, in the future, we don't have an election
God,
day.
no.
We have an election season. It lasts about 4.5 months.
And by the way, I missed that. I know you're moving on, but I got to tell you, part of the reason why I can't stand mail-in voting is because it starts so early. We're having debates after people have voted, and then now they're extending these deadlines weeks until afterwards. It's like it's this mushy 6 to 7 week election season instead of like, yeah, today's election day. Like we're gonna see what happens. There's a glamour to that that's gone. There's romanticism that has been lost, my friend.
Sure, I just think
Yeah, but I don't know. But this cycle, I think people knew where they were going, frankly, 6 months from now. I mean, 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that there's like going to be this big like, oh, gee, what should I do? It's November 3rd. Who should I support? This one's like if you're a Biden guy, you basically hate Trump and you think he's just terrible. If you're a Trump guy, then you just hate the libs. Okay, fine. Like, pick your side. Let's get this done.
So I'm curious though. You're a data guy because you're always loving the data. I have read studies. Traditionally, it's always been, there's the 33% Democrat, there's the 33% Republican, and there's this 33% out there that are independents that sway all these elections and so on and so forth. But I was reading a study that said if they actually truly counted independents based upon these surveys, that this year it was only 14%. In all of your scouring of the internet of all this data that you've actually looked at, have you actually come across any numbers you trust or seem like they make sense that determine what population of us Americans are truly actually independent?
The last numbers I saw were it was around 40% that describe themselves as independent. What we don't know is your point, which is like, well, are they independents because they just don't want to be associated with either party, but they tend to lean in one direction or another? Like, you could make the argument it could be either. There could be a bunch of independents who just don't really like the Democratic Party, but will vote Democrat this time. Or there could be a bunch of self-described independents that are really Trump voters that don't want to.
Well, yeah, because I know literally at this point hundreds of conservatives that register as independent or even as Democrat for fear of reprisal of being figured out that like this person's a Republican. Like I don't want a brick thrown through my window. So I register as independent, even though I'm going to vote Republican and so on and so forth. So I've kind of wondered, because just like you, I've sensed that, there's this third is not a third this time around. It's like a 10th. Yeah. And so I've wondered if you've come across any data that actually shows how many of us are actually truly independent.
Well, and I guess on the other end, personally, I registered again in California as an independent because I don't want to be associated with either of these parties. So I think we have both of those. It's just too much, man. For me personally, I see like one of my concerns, and I do want to get something else, but my only concern, Andrew Yang brought this up, and the reason why I want to get into it is when he said that voting for Joe Biden, he described it as going backwards in time. And negative, positive connotations aside, I just have a fear that we could find ourselves right back here with someone whose name isn't Donald Trump, who acts and behaves the same way, with the same complaints against a Biden administration that functions similar to the Obama one. It's just like, I just feel like that's why both parties, like, I don't love what I see from Republicans. I joke, if the only platform the Republicans had was launching me into space in a comically sized catapult, I'd vote for them because it would never happen. And then the same can almost go for Democrats. So I think it's a possibility. I guess your response, and I want to see one thing.
Yeah, so I could see the argument that Biden's like not the progressive, innovative guy that, let's say, Yang was. But if you look at the Joe Biden website, and he actually has like very specific proposals. They're not in the form of PowerPoint, but there's tons of details there. And then if you look at the Donald Trump website, there's no plans for the next term. And so on the one hand, if you think about healthcare, public option, you think about climate change, having a net zero goal, restoring a bunch of environmental protections. Like, there's a lot of things that Biden would do that would move us forward. It wouldn't be like a huge leap, but it would be, in my opinion, in the right direction. And we also need to think about Biden's team, which could be inclusive of a lot of people that we admire. Certainly, I would admire probably the Biden administration team more than, let's say, a Betsy DeVos or a Barr or a Jared Kushner. I mean, these are not, these are not people I would want running the country. So for me, whether Biden is enough of a step forward or a step backward, to me, the thing that really drives my vote was, who do I trust? Who do I think can lead a competent team? Who is going to put the country first? And on all three of those things, I know for sure, in my opinion, the answer is no for Trump. And the answer for Biden is like, yeah, probably, maybe, hope so. I'll take that, like, that's life. Like, you don't always get the perfect choice.
No, I hear it. I'm close personally. I'm just a little bit more dour on Biden, I think. But either way, again, that's just personally. Some people love pickles. I can't stand them. You know,
He did better in that town hall than I expected. Biden,
did,
I thought he gave some pretty good answers there.
Because I want to get to, you actually led me in, but I'd say one last thing because I want to get off topic with this for a second. The other thing that concerned me about the Biden admin a little bit and Biden winning, and that town hall was an example. We can get into the reasons. Don't care what the reasons are. For whatever reason, generally, like establishment Democrats like Biden get a little bit more softer hands from some media networks. And I just don't like the idea of going, I would rather the media lit their hair on fire and screamed about the president every day than just kind of be like, the president's fine. Don't worry about it too much. I'd rather they were saying, the president wore a tan suit. This is an outrage, than the president's fine. Don't pay attention to him. But the media doesn't help everyone always anyway, so who cares? But you brought up teams and who they're going to bring in. I want to bring this up. I want to give a little shout out. You actually can't see this, unfortunately, but I'm bringing it up on the screen right now. Change.org petition started by Mr. Tom right here on Joe Biden should offer Andrew Yang a high-ranking cabinet role. All of the link in the description so you guys
Wait,
can...
you started that? I guess I didn't realize that.
Yeah, you can see right there, Nerds for Humanity.
Oh, that's hilarious because
That's me.
I saw that on the feeds and I clicked on it and I read it, but I didn't notice the started by.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Because getting to the idea of teams and who people would bring in, because again, that is one of the people, I don't know, we don't have a king. Unfortunately for me, I'd rather have a king or a queen, but we don't have one.
No.
We have a president, and they are in charge of the executive branch, but they have to hire a bunch of people to do a bunch of jobs, and then they have states that do things, and they're not the emperor of the world. They have to work with people to get things done. So yes, obviously I would love to see Andrew Yang brought in some kind of role. There's a lot of people interested in it as well. Unfortunately, now, I wish it was like sports gambling and like we had like the historically only 4 cabinet members appeared on a article leading in. But this is the one thing. Let's get to a little bit of the unfortunate dour reality of yours, because I've been looking for the same thing. I've been hoping to see Andrew Yang get some kind of nod. But I keep seeing articles that come out. This is one that was crazy to me, is when Joe Biden floated out a bunch of, let me see, pull it up here from Esquire. I don't want to go too far into it, but a bunch of Republicans as a possible cabinet position people. This is from Esquire, and they say that Democrats can't resist starting fires in their own backyards. Too much of the Republican Party is too nuts. Don't talk to me about team of rivals is the thing. However, this is the quote to bring up. They say that a person close to the Biden transition team, which, by the way, I'm going to throw the whole article out right there. I hate that. Somebody close familiar. Oh, awesome. But they bring up the fact that there could be potential. The goal is to have some GOP options among the finalists that Biden would choose from after the election. Among the names being floated for possible Biden cabinet posts are Meg Whitman, the CEO of Quibi. Okay. I don't care who it is. I don't care if my best friend was elected president. If they put the CEO of Quibi on there, not a fan. But they go through former CEO of eBay, John Kasich. Okay, we've seen him a lot. Massachusetts GOP Governor Charlie Baker, and former Senator Jeff Flake. We'll go through that. But that's just the question. As someone who, I believe you said you're voting for Biden, how would you feel, one, if they were to bring in some of these old GOP people into a new cabinet? And then two, just about the idea of how they brought some old GOP people into the DNC. I just personally didn't like that. I'm wondering how you felt.
Well, as a former GOP Republican, before the Trump era, I wouldn't mind seeing some Republicans in the Biden cabinet, like a Romney or a Flake. I think they're great. Yeah, Whitman, I don't know if her recent track record justifies it, but I think there's a lot of great, like, rational, data-driven Republicans who believe in, like, efficiency and logic and consistency. I like that kind of Republican.
No, okay. So I guess that's.
I don't like the yelling and the angry and the.
What are you talking about? You're not
like that.
Carden, you can never
USA!
complain about clipping
it's like,
ever
okay,
again.
USA!
Like the whole USA thing is like, we're all Americans. Why are you chanting? It's like.
Well, because there's
It's
one
just
party that loves
weird.
America.
Well, no, I think, hey, both parties should be screaming USA at each other, competing in volume until they all hug. That'd be the dream, right? But
It's like if we were at a Hawks Rams game and then like the Rams fans started chanting like NFL, it'd be like, what the we're all in the NFL. What's the deal?
NFC,
Like,
baby. NFC. NFC West. NFC West. Our division. I get it. Honestly, though, and I think this is, and again, people can have their opinion. I think it's just a problem with everybody has, in marketing, they call them, avatars? Like, think of your ideal customer and market to them. People think of their ideal political opposition and berate them. I think that's just part of the Twitter. Here's the thing. When you meet people that vote both ways and you talk to them, they'll bring up a couple opinions that'll really grate you, but at the end of the day, I don't know. I can't tell if someone's a Trump or a Biden voter when I meet them, generally speaking.
Oh, I can tell from a mile away because they're wearing a mask or not.
Okay, hyperbole aside, right? I don't know. I think it's just part of the
You see a guy jogging that looks happy, confident, jogging down the street. He's in good shape. You know what I'm saying? No mask on. You're like, yeah, that's the guy. That guy's voting for Trump. You know what I'm saying? You see some dude in his car with a mask on and rubber gloves on his own steering wheel. Yeah, you know he's voting for Biden. I can tell from a mile away,
Remember
dog.
I talked about that concept of the avatar where you think of a person that doesn't exist and then you berate them? Great example, Carden.
I'm glad. I'm glad, Tom.
Carden, man, you have a very low opinion of Biden voters.
See, that's what I mean.
I have lived in California. Like, I want to have this podcast again with you, Tom, a year from you living back in the States. I literally do. And I'm going to see if your opinion, you notice yourself, you haven't filed income taxes yet, dog. I'm going to call you up April 5th. And I'm going to straight up, even motherfucking Bill Maher is straight up Republican April 5th. You check out Bill Maher's tweets every April 5th for the past 5 years. He goes Republican for 3 weeks. And that's just for his money that he makes in LA. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I did have one question, though. If you're done with your questions, I only have one question for Tom.
By me.
Is it my turn? Okay, cool. So I'm curious, Tom. What is the future of the YangGang to you?
Ooh.
Because I'll be honest with you. I have been disappointed with Yang, and I don't want to lead the witness here or anything like that. Because the only true bipartisan experience I've ever had in my life was being in the YangGang. It was the only truly bipartisan experience. And if there ever were a person and a time and a people that supported that leader who could have started a third party or started another bigger, better, bolder, equally bipartisan movement, it was Andrew Yang. But Humanity Forward is only endorsing Democrats. And he's basically just become now another political operative on CNN for the Democrats, vying for probably a cabinet position. I don't want to say sold out because that's too cruel, but at the same time, he's gone from being an interesting fusion of all ideas to now literally on his resume being no different than Amy Klobuchar if she had a podcast. So what's the future of us? Because the coolness of the YangGang was that guys like you and me were literally making podcasts on behalf of the same cat. And now it's like, I can't just be a Humanity Forward guy. If Humanity Forward's never going to endorse UBI Republicans, that's crazy. So what's the future of the YangGang?
I think it's a really interesting question, and it reflects the fact that the Yang campaign was on half of it was a bunch of really cool new ideas and a really cool fresh candidate. But the other half of it was this empty vessel that a lot of us kind of put whatever we liked in there, and we're like, yeah, that must be Andrew. And I think now that the campaign has suspended, we've learned that, okay, the YangGang had probably 3 sub-segments to it. There were the, let's just call them establishment Democrats that were looking for a newer face, newer ideas. I would probably put myself there. I was not going to consider Trump. So I was like, well, of all the Democrats, who can I get that's really inspiring and has some fresh ideas? And then on the other side, you had these people who were Trump voters or Republicans who were really, they felt like Andrew was just not a Democrat or Republican. It was the whole left, right, but forward thing. And then in the middle, you had these highly disillusioned people who hadn't voted ever or for many, many cycles. and were kind of inspired by the Yang candidacy. And now that the campaign is suspended, we've all kind of reverted back to our natural positions, and you can see that tension within the YangGang. Like
I don't even think it's reverting back to the natural position. Like, I really feel like conservatives in the YangGang are kind of forced out just because there's like literally there's no place. Where's the place for the conservative YangGanger? Because he's literally just chosen the Democrat operative, humanity forward only. I'm literally getting tweets in my feed that says, look, guys, if you're not going to register Democrat, you can't be YangGang because he's never going to endorse anybody. You know, with what he's trying to do, he's never going to endorse a Republican. And then now, he used to say it's not left nor right, it's forward. And now he's literally only endorsing left. And then he used to say things like, Trump's not, the problem. He's a symptom of the problem. We need to attack the problem. And then now you're getting all these just sound bites of, most dangerous president in the world. Like, literally, if you were to look at Andrew Yang, not knowing what he was before, since he suspended his campaign, he sounds no different than any of the other Democrats with a podcast that rehearse the talking points. And now I get, like Marianne Williamson said, he's like, okay, now you're the cool kids table. Yeah, I get that he's kind of got to, adopt more of the talking points that come down from above because now, he's one of the official CNN/Democrat candidacy people. But I mean, do you have to lose all of what made you cool? And it literally makes me feel like there's not a spot in the YangGang for the conservative Yangers anymore. Because you would be forced to just vote Democrat and do Democrat things.
Well, I'll say this. I think if you look at his 150 policy plans, they definitely were more on the Democratic side of the kind of philosophy than the Republican side. I mean, I think it's just... but there were some that were so overwhelmingly good, I was willing to put up with it, like thermal reactors. You know what I'm saying? Like switching to freaking nuclear fusion. I will put up with a Democrat presidency for 4 years if we build 50 nuclear power plants in the United States of America.
One thing about Andrew Yang, honestly, he hasn't really been asked about this at all since, which I get why. But just to go back, one thing I thought was interesting, and one of the things because you mentioned he did have some fairly left policy platforms early on, but he also had a border policy that was definitely to the right of anybody else running as a Democrat when he first launched. I remember he had a very eloquent way of putting it. He wanted to revitalize the Rio Grande so the river would be flowing. Basically make it a moat, just make a river so big people can't cross there anymore. Just because one of the things about a UBI is you do have to tighten borders. But that marriage I always thought was interesting. One thing, my little personal pet project I'm working on is to get the right wing and the left wing populists to realize they're angry at the exact same people. And some of them have red ties and some of them have blue ties, but they're the exact same people. Just my little personal pet philosophy. Yeah. But I think that was interesting. But to your point, you brought up the YangGang changed. I think both of you guys, one thing... Yes, in October and November of 2020, if you're in the YangGang and you're very strict, very big on Trump, it'll be kind of weird because it's basically the election. But if Yang doesn't get a cabinet spot and he gets shunned by the Democrats, I'm not saying he will or won't, but if he does, couldn't you guys both see Andrew Yang being very much a similar character July, August of 2021? If he's kind of elbowed out of if he doesn't get a seat at the table, why wouldn't he be back to where he was before, attacking both the Republicans and Democrats for not getting what he wants done? I don't see why that wouldn't happen.
Well, he would need, if he wants to have a shot at 24, he needs to get one of the party's nominations, or he would have to take the long shot bet on a third party. The most probable course of action would be to try and increase his chances for a Democratic Party nomination. So I actually thought when he criticized Pelosi, I understand why. That was pretty ballsy because she's kind of influential in the Democratic Party.
Well, she is 80 years old. No, I'm just saying, like, in 2028, I would be dumbfounded if she was Speaker of the House, right? Like, there's a problem if 8 years from now she's Speaker of the House. Because that's more what I think. I think what Trump represented, and I guess I don't want to take up too much time, but I think he was kind of the death of, to your point, the Republican Party you voted for, he killed it. It's gone. They're going to be in Joe Biden's cabinet now, right? I think someone's going to come and kill the Democratic Party as it is today. I don't think 78-year-old Joe Biden, 80-year-old Nancy Pelosi, I don't think all these people that have been the Democrat establishment for the past 40 years, they're just going to lose and age out. I mean, is Mitch McConnell going to be here in 8 years? I don't think so. I mean, we called them the establishment, but just the people who had 30, 40 years of run in these two parties, they're kind of gone. And I think position yourself, the way Trump positioned himself to kill the Republicans is he was no fan of the Democrats, but he said George Bush should go to jail for war crimes. I mean, like, he wasn't exactly like the most Republican running person either. I think that lane could open. I don't know what your thoughts on this is, but I think that lane could open for Andrew even with the Biden win.
I would not love, but it would be a really interesting scenario if the Trumpist movement continues to kind of control the Republican Party and yank it in that direction. And then let's say the AOC wing kind of takes over the Democratic Party. Then where does the kind of 80% of the country in the middle, like, where do we go? I wish there were more party competition. The system isn't really set up to encourage a lot of competition. It is a duopoly. Like, if it were, in the private sector, you'd probably say, hey, something's not right here. But it's very hard for a third party. I mean, you got to get on the ballot. There's all these different rules, and it's not really set up to allow it. But that could be a driving factor. And if Yang were part of a third party movement, I would be very tempted, especially if I felt like the Democratic Party was going in too much of a giant government direction.
Yeah, and what do you think? My last question here, I want to put past you, I think Cardinals a few after, is I've been saying, to my point of getting these two populist movements together, if there is some kind of left-wing populist movement, and I think you said where would the 80% of Americans go, I think the cool thing with that is they would kind of dilute both extremes. If both parties are kind of extreme, voters from both will be diluting them. They'll be like, we don't want to elect the crazy extreme people like this, right? So they'll kind of rein them in a little bit.
Yeah, that's possible. I think the party nomination process seems to favor those extreme voters. I mean, the sort of extreme 20%, like the people that participate in the primaries are not that 80%. And the party leadership, if it were controlled by these extremes, like they kind of pick their favorites and they really boost them to get the nomination, so that by the time that the 80% get to choose, we have to pick between like these really kind of extreme candidates. And it's unfortunate, but that's why I don't need to tell you guys, like, the whole open primary ranked choice voting thing would be amazing. And sometimes I wish we as the YangGang and maybe that Unity 2020 kind of movement, like if we all just concentrated our efforts around one state to get open primary RCV, that probably would have done more for the country than supporting the dark horse or even frankly some YangGang congressional candidates who I think are amazing and I volunteer for them too. But if you want to think about systemic change, this primary process that just favors safe candidates that are not motivated to compromise and only care about like not getting primaried, like that's just effed up.
Well, big time. You know what? I think if Yang does miss a cabinet spot, I think because early on he was a little bit too heavy-handed in endorsing candidates that were primarying established Democrats in districts. I think that would be the one thing I could see where Nancy Pelosi, for example, might not forget that he was endorsing candidates against her.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue maybe that's why he didn't really lean into the Herzog thing because, that's poking a bear in the face.
Oh, yeah. I think he learned early on he was endorsing a lot more people that were trying to primary as challengers, and it seems like as time went on, the official endorsements skewed more towards people challenging Republicans and less towards trying to primary Democrats. But again, that was what I kind of loved about Yang at first. That's why the reality is his future career choice requires that he behaves and acts in a different way than when he was running for president. He's running against Joe Biden. He's not working for him.
Like,
he was
Trump
running against
that
him. Now
wrong.
he isn't. I don't see that's the reality, man.
Okay, so first off, I do have to say, Tom, you said you'd stop voting for Democrats if they seem to be too big government. knowing that Joe Biden is going to have a 62% marginal tax rate. Like, at what point do we call that big government? And then I want you to answer the rest of that was just a dig. It actually wasn't a question. I was just joking with you, Tom. I do want you to finish your thought though about what the future of the YangGang is, though. Do you think it is just trying to adopt a cause like RCV, ranked choice voting, and trying to, I don't know, maybe hopefully make it so Vermont at least does it, so we can start getting data about whether it works? Or since so many of us are in California, that we try and do that, or whatever, you know? What is the future of the YangGang? Because to me, it would be sad to see the only truly bipartisan experience I've ever had dissolve into just the same old blah that it was before. But our fearless leader, for lack of a better term, has kind of done that. So, like, what do you think really is the future of the YangGang?
Yeah, here's what I think is part of the quandary is that the thing that animated the YangGang, in my opinion, was this underlying kind of frustration with the whole system. It was sort of like a bit more of a data-driven Asian Trump. It was like this whole system is effed up, and here's someone that's talking to us in a very different way than we're used to seeing them from these traditional candidates. And the reason why that's a bit of a puzzle is you don't get the nomination by being that guy unless like you kind of draw an inside straight like I think Trump did. And so I wonder, like, okay, if Yang 2024 repeated the same energy as he did for Yang 2020, he would probably end up in like 4th place in the New Hampshire and South Carolina primaries. Like, I don't know that he would get to win, to get the nomination, and then we would just get more frustrated. So on the other hand, if he takes a more probabilistic approach and says, okay, well, I need to kind of play the game a little more, and I can't, I need to kind of pick a party and then go with that party and then climb that kind of party ladder, then a lot of us will be like, well, now he starts to sound like, what's the difference between him and Mayor Pete, or what's the difference between him and Klobuchar, right?
Yeah.
So that's a tough. The one path where he could get high energy and maybe have impact and someday get into the White House is if both parties continue to kind of shoot themselves in the foot, and there really was a legitimate third party movement. But that's something that would need to start years in advance. That's not something that's the thing why I was always concerned about the Unity 2020 stuff, because it was like, you don't do that in 6 months. That is just not practical.
Yeah. Now, and that you mentioned that was my biggest disappointment. Was I thought, I know Cody disagrees with me and a bunch of other people do, but I've said it once before, but I'll say it again. If there ever were a time in my adult life where somebody had the movement, the finances, the impetus, and the ideas to start an actually viable third party, I think it was Andrew Yang. And that was the greatest loss of 2020.
But what about, we talked about a little bit, I brought it up, but the debates, we talked about this before on streams. Who decides who goes through the debates? The Commission on Presidential Debates. I believe it's made up entirely by Democrats and Republicans by design. Like, there's so many little factors that exist all throughout.
But if Andrew Yang proved anything,
out, you would need, like you said, you'd have to change the rules and have a independent wing of you'd have to literally change the entire structure.
I'll tell you right now,
it's tough, man.
A guy that scores a solid response to the buffoonery that we saw in that first debate and does the internet better, like Andrew Yang says, and does a companion stream with PewDiePie or H3N3 or Joe Rogan or whoever, you know what I'm saying?
Is that the never mind.
Or yeah, whatever. You know what I'm saying. You're right. I mixed up H1N1.
That's what I was going to say. I'm like, I don't think he's contagious.
You're right. That's really
viral.
funny.
Yeah, he's gone viral.
Chemo brain is real, dog. Chemo brain is real. That's all I can say. But I don't know. I think we're so addicted to the old way of doing things, even though we live in a world of new ways. I think Andrew Yang is smart enough I think he's smart enough that he could have gotten around it because honestly, the first 18 months of his campaign, he was getting around an entire establishment media class and ruling class that wouldn't give him the time of day. I mean, the first 18 months of his candidacy are proof that he can make it around an establishment that won't pay attention to him.
You know what worries me, I guess, around that? And this is a tiny point. I feel like sometimes that's what happens is they make you work so hard to get a seat at the table. They can convince you to give up just enough to where you're not who you used to be anymore. But now you have a seat at the table, but you're not who you were when you got there. Yeah. They made you give that up by just dangling it above your head. You don't get to go on the interviews. We're going to marginalize you. Oh, you want a seat? Tell you what. Say these things, do these things. Now we'll let you in, but you're also saying and doing these things. But hey, Andrew Yang, he's a grown man. I believe he has a wife and children. He has a house and he sold a business. I think he can handle himself just fine, right? But it's just, it is a concern.
So, yeah.
You know, there is one other permutation that could be intriguing, which is if Yang started a third party, and even if he didn't get to the White House, you could argue if that third party movement was sustainable and had enough critical mass to influence the elections,
that he'd save America?
Yeah, it could have more impact than him being the number 3 primary guy in the Democratic Party.
Like, that's what you just said. And by the way, this is why I love you. That sentence was amazing. What did you say? Another permutation that could have, like, that was just an amazing sentence. You know what I'm saying? Like, there were like 3 word of the days in there. But anyway, that's what I envisioned. When I do say if anybody could have started a third party, I didn't even necessarily envision it to become president. I just envisioned it to exist and be an option for the American people that carries his name forever.
But how about this? You were speaking the idea of long-term. Winning presidency, what if you started at third independent party? We saw Justin Amash recently switch to independent, a sitting congressperson. I believe it was, I'm blanking on the individual's name. He switched from Democrat to Republican, or he went to independent with Republican, I believe, up in New Jersey, a sitting congressperson. I mean, if you build a party that gets movement.
Yeah.
Let's say, you don't even make it to the base stage, but what if you get 1 or 2 Congress people elected, 1 or 2 of them defect from, they were kind of a Republican, kind of a Democrat. I mean, I think that actually, you don't have to win the whole election, but if you can just establish that, like, we're not a joke. This isn't, and I hate to say it, but this isn't, people in crazy costume at the Libertarian convention saying, why can't 8-year-olds buy heroin? You know what I mean? Like, it isn't that. Like, this is a real legitimate third party movement with people in Congress registered to us. But then what is I know it's part of that, but like, what is the way you do that? Do you think it is just by campaigning, being legitimate, talking, being on ballots, and just kind of making that pitch, making that case too? Because there does seem to be people in the House that are looking to switch. They're fine moving to a new party.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Yang in that scenario, if Yang started a third party movement or joined an existing one, and he showed that he could amass enough voter kind of energy and support to influence key congressional districts where there's a really weak-ass Republican and weak-ass Democrat, and then you get a couple of these congressional wins, right off the bat, like now you're starting to really eat into the system.
That's literally Moneyball. Like the Moneyball guy didn't even end up winning the World Series.
That could stop a bill.
Yeah,
that could be the difference. The Republican was getting a bill passed because being like, we might only have 4 Congress people, but we can stop bills getting passed.
It's bigger than that, though, bro. If you had 4 of those congressional candidates or even Senate candidates, you all of a sudden control whether or not Amy Coney Barrett gets selected or not. Oh, yeah. You all of a sudden control whether or not an amendment gets passed. Right. You control whether or not Harry Reid can get rid of the filibuster or not.
Steps back. So then, as you guys brought up earlier, you think the plan forward for this is push for ranked choice voting and then try to, over the next few years, circle a few districts where, because even if they can win as Republicans or Democrats, if they're leaning towards a certain independent movement and that party sprouts, right? So you think that's it? Circle some districts?
I would actually, as much as I believe that open primaries with RCV is like a fundamental solution to like what's broken, I worry that it's just too freaking complicated
to explain.
Get people fired up about it. I mean, like, we could do it here because we're into this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I tried explaining it to like a neighbor the other day, and I don't think they were really. Then we started talking about the Seahawks because like it just
Tell them it's like MVP votes. If they do it, it's the same thing as MVP voting. They count the ones, the twos, the threes, the fours. They add them up and they weight it.
So I think if Yang's in that scenario, if he started like the Humanity Forward Party and he started influencing congressional elections and amassing the support, number one, it would liberate him from having to kind of like censor himself, which he may have to do now because he doesn't want to jeopardize his standing in the Democratic Party. That would energize, people like Cardin who are like, hey, I want the old Yang back. Well, you'd get the old Yang back. and then you probably have enough influence to maybe move some congressional seats. And then you could make RCV like one of the kind of tenets of getting the Humanity Forward Party endorsement. And when you got that endorsement, it would mean something. And then we would organize so that when we have these big congressional and Senate votes, the Republican and Democrat votes, they're kind of like locked in. They don't even have a choice. They have to kind of go with their party. The HF party could be like the one party that's just going to do the right thing. And then suddenly a handful of congressmen and senators could shape the future of the country. Like, it's possible.
And I mean, like, there is literally libertarian Congress people. Like, it's not like they're all Democrat and Republican. And I know I dig at the Libertarian Party, but a maybe more sober-minded, clearer visioned party with that same level of influence could be interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess that's interesting. I don't know. I personally, I like the idea for that because I do think the Andrew Yang, the group of people he found that are interested in politics and what their concerns are, is important, and it's not going away. I mean, I hate to say it, it's the truth. That same group of people can move to another person in 2024 for all we know. Andrew's a great guy, but he's not the greatest person who's ever lived, right? There's Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Like, there's multiple great people that come up and do certain things. Like, the energy's there. There's people that are looking, saying, these are all problems. This is all crap. 80-year-old Mitch McConnell, 80-year-old Nancy Pelosi, and 78-year-old Joe Biden, and 75-year-old Donald Trump. Like, those aren't our long-term solutions. And this energy is going to remain.
So
now, before we get too carried away with this line of thinking, I do want to say that if Biden wins and Yang is in the inner circle and he's in the room where it happens, I do think he would have more influence. Like, the probability of him helping the country would be far greater in that scenario than starting a third party and influencing like the whole Congress,
but Harris will kick him out. She doesn't have any use for him, and it's going to be a Harris administration anyway. So I don't know. I just look at that. I'm like, bad game plan.
Well, also, I just feel like 47 years in office, he's going to owe James Clyburn a massive favor. I mean, Biden's going to owe some favors, is all I'm saying. So if I was more optimistic about Yang maybe getting closer to getting that seat and it being like more of a done deal, it'd be one thing. But I just feel like, and it's not even like Yang isn't a good guy or Biden's a jerk. It's just Biden knows a lot of people, man. He's been doing this for a while. There's probably people 4 years ago he said, hey, if I get in the White House, I can help you out here. So it's just, it's politics. It is what it is. But yeah, I mean, if Yang is like the labor secretary, which by the way is apparently a position Bernie Sanders has to like campaign for. Bernie Sanders Bernie Sanders is for the second time debased himself to encourage his supporters to support the person who stole Biden didn't steal the way Hillary, but you know what I mean? It was like Bernie runs like, you got these billionaires, these millionaires, and then it's like Wall Street's like, Joe Biden's got to win. And he's like, well, Joe Biden's good now. I don't know. I just feel like that.
I have reason to believe that there is an argument for some more optimism about Biden doing the right thing. And one argument would be he's probably not going to go for 2 terms. Mm-hmm. This is his last kind of shot on the big stage. He's probably going to be thinking about his legacy, and he's going to want to make some big moves. And in order to do that, he's going to need some new ideas and people that he can trust. And I think that Yang could be a highly trusted advisor and cabinet member for Biden and help lead some initiatives to help Biden have the win that he wants, in his only term as president. So I don't know. I don't think it's a automatic Biden's going to pay back favors. Like this is the last. It's like the last hand of poker. Like he's just going to do whatever he wants to kind of win the whole pot.
Isn't that sad that we're talking about a president going in like as a dying wish? You know what I'm saying? Like it's like an Iron Will, that old movie, or like, you know, that story of like the
Michael Jordan's The Last Dance.
Yeah,
like,
you know what I'm
this
saying?
boys. This is
it, man.
Well, but how about what do you think about oh shit! Just got off topic thinking about the little engine that could there.
Yeah,
we were talking about a moment ago. Oh no!
Well, Trump last term, second term wouldn't exactly be a beauty pageant either. You know.
Here's the
actually
thing.
it literally would. He owns the Miss Universe competition. No.
Again, the last thing I'll say is I'm worried. Less maybe that Biden has to do favors, but picking Yang over other people could make enemies that make life difficult for Biden. I don't think it's like Biden wouldn't do the wrong thing or like he'd snub Yang because like forget this guy. It's just sometimes reality works out in a way where it's like, dude, it's gonna anger too many people to not give him this job. You know, like it'll just make I won't get stuff done. Maybe I don't know. It just who knows what happens. I wouldn't bet either way on it. It's just
so. Here's my final.
Yeah, well, if he doesn't get offered a big role or he doesn't accept it. It could be a really interesting story for what Yang does next and what the YangGang can do to kind of be helpful.
Yeah, I think he's totally going to get snubbed. He got mistreated along the whole way, and like I feel like he's getting played. I feel like the Dems are totally getting are just playing him, and he's going to have to figure out that these people are evil and don't give a crap about him and will milk him like a dairy cow until they send him to the slaughterhouse. They
may learn to regret that because if they force him out of the party and he decides to go independent, like he could cause a lot of problems for them.
Well, yeah, and you're the one that's gonna have to be leading the charge, bro. I remember when the Republican Party was floundering 6 or 7 years ago, and they didn't have any really good A-listers. This was pre-Trump. I remember I was listening to the radio. And a caller called in, and multiple callers at that time had said Rush Limbaugh is the de facto leader of the Republican Party right now. And you are the Rush Limbaugh of the YangGang. You know what I'm saying? You're the first radio host. I think you started exactly 1 week before us. You know what I'm saying? And so you're the Rush Limbaugh of the YangGang. So you need to start pushing.
I don't know about that. I think Paget.
You are the de facto lead. No, she's just the hottest because she's a girl. But you're the early first radio host that did it. So you are the Rush Limbaugh. She can be the Laura Ingraham or whatever. But you're the Rush Limbaugh of the YangGang. And you need to start accepting this mantle and then pushing for this RCV and pushing for this humanity forward third party.
At least get the gold microphone, right?
Yeah. So
there you go. Well, I'll always do my best to see what the data says. How about I'll commit to that.
Yeah, always data-driven Rush Limbaugh, right? Wasn't that what he was always hammering on about? Was the graphs and the charts, the spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're gonna wrap up here. I don't want to take up too much of your time. We're talking off air. I want to get you on the record though. How many games Seahawks winning, and do they win the division?
I believe that the Seahawks will win probably 12 games, and I do not think we will win the division, but we will go deep into the playoffs.
So you think they're going to go 500 down the stretch, basically, and then who wins the division?
That I don't know.
Not going to be the Niners, none of
that. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like the Hawks have a way of making things super exciting, and given that we're undefeated, you could argue we should win the division, but that never I don't know. I don't feel like it ever works out that way. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be a little more conservative and say, yeah, we don't need to win the division. We'll get to the playoffs, and we're going to make a real good run at it. Mm-hmm. And our team will develop, and then we'll win the Super Bowl next year.
Okay, and then next year. Okay, very good, very good. Well, hey, hopefully we do another one of these before a full year, so we can catch up sooner to when the season ends.
Yeah, we'll have to get you guys in the nerd zone for the next one. We'll kind of alternate.
We'll do it. Hey, when do the Rams play the Seahawks? We'll do it around then. I think in a few weeks.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
both their games are at the end of the season for some reason. So.
Yeah, the Rams I don't feel are much of a threat, are they?
I'd watch that Rams squad. They're a talented squad. Rebuilding a bit. They overpaid some guys, so they had to dump Todd Gurley in Atlanta. Which, by the way, thank you, Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And a couple other things, but they're doing fine. They're 4-2, something like that.
Didn't they lose
they lost a couple tough games. They lost one game to the Bills when the Bills were on fire. Not going to hold that against them. And then they lost very recently to the 49ers. Division game, amen. Big, tough games in your division are never easy.
All right, so we're going to have to end it here. We've been talking with Nerds for Humanity, a.k.a. the Rush Limbaugh of the YangGang. And where can people find you? Where can people find you?
On YouTube, we are at Nerds for Humanity. On Twitter, it's at Nerds for Yang. And wherever you listen to podcasts, there's an audio version as well.
Okay, part of the EIB network everywhere. Thank you very much for showing up, T-Bone. Cody, you got anything else you want to say, or are we out of here?
No, just great having you, man. Always enjoyed talking to you. And again, hope everyone listening has a somehow great end of the year, last few months.
All right.
Let's get you guys in the Nerd Zone after November 3rd, and we can talk about like what the next steps are.
I love it, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
I'll try when I'm talking to Trump in the White House. We'll let you know how that goes.
Oh, we'll see about that. Peace out, brother.
Politics. We'll see you in the next video.
Take care.